Hello children, welcome to the English class. As in the last video, we have discussed about the title Owls and the Family, something about the writer also I told you, and I also discussed with you that what is the essence of why is this chapter is so important, what are the qualities which this chapter highlights. Okay, and just to have a recap about it, we have seen in the last video, we have read in the last video that grandfather and his grandson, which I told you that this lesson is a first person narrative, so we can understand that Ruskin Bond is talking about himself. Here the boy is Ruskin Bond himself, maybe. So this grandfather and the boy, they found two owlets on the different days, and they start raising them, they start taking care of them, those owlets in 2 3 days they become their own family members. Okay, and in 10 15 days they gain weight, and they become very nice, very active. They grow very nicely, and one fine day grandfather and his grandson, they decide to free the owlets, because what they thought of, that they thought that these owlets have by chance might have just slipped down from the pipe, and that is why they are here in the house. And that is why they think that now they should free the owlets so that they can live their own natural life. They don't have to live into hiding, or they don't have to live into the house, in the frame of house, or in the walls of house, to be kept as a pet. But they wanted these owlets to be free, you know and that is why what they do is they went to the garden, and there they try to leave them. But in the midst of that, the mother of those owlets, she comes, and then she gives a nice blow. Okay, while when these two, grandfather and grandson, were leaving those outlets, this mother comes and gives a nice blow, and as if she is restraining, uh, for their freedom. She doesn't want that her outlets to be free. But still, what they do, they leave the outlets near the tree, and they come back. Let's see now what happens after that. Okay, we thought she would take her family away from our rather strange household, but next morning, on coming out of my room, I found two young owls standing on the wall just outside the door. What they have done, they just kept the owlets there near the mango tree, where they have the holes. I told you, we have discussed earlier in this lesson, that these spotted owlets, they live inside the hole in the tree trunks, so they just left it and they came back. But to their surprise, it was something unusual that two owlets, they came back, and they were sitting on the wall just outside the door. I ran to tell grandfather, and when we came back, we found the mother sitting on the bird bath 10 yards away. And when this boy ran inside to call the grandfather, and when they both came outside, it was more surprising. What was surprising? That their mother was also sitting there with them, right? She was evidently feeling sorry for her behavior the previous day, because she greeted us with a soft woo woo. I mean, see, these animals also can express, can emote all sorts of emotion. If they are angry, if they are happy, if they are sorry, whosoever has pet at their homes, they might understand what I'm saying. That these animals, they always express in whichever manner they can. So the way she was looking at them, the way she was producing sound, it was not angry sound. It was a sorry sound, that she did not mean to hurt any one of them yesterday. When they went there to keep the um, outlets near the branch, so that they could be with their mother. But instead, what mother wanted, just see. Now there's an unselfish mother for you. unselfish mother. Why writer is using this term unselfish? Of course, as we know, mothers cannot be selfish, but then every mother wants to have their children or child with her. She will never let her children go away from her if it is not that important for the betterment of the child. That is why the writer says, now here's an unusual mother for you, said grandfather. It's obvious she would like them to have a good home. Surprisingly, to their surprise, mother wanted to have a very good home for her owlets. Maybe she knew that she would not be able to take care of them so very nicely as grandfather and this boy has taken care of her owlets. And they are probably getting a bit too big for her to manage. And now maybe grandfather is saying that maybe as they have fed these owlets so very nicely that they are increasing in weight and strength, and now she is unable to feed them. Now she is not able to take care of her own owlets. She is not able to manage, she is not able to hunt for them. So the two owlets became regular members of our household, and strangely enough were among the few pets that grandmother took a liking to. And as the mother left her owlets for grandfather and this boy, so they understood that now these owlets have become the regular family members of this household, and so that is why they have started taking care of these owlets very nicely, right? And the surprise and the shock was in tons. Why? Because grandmother, which uh, she was supposed to be the person who never liked so many pets around, but the grandmother also started liking these owlets, and that was something surprising, something shocking for both of these guys. um, she objected to all snakes, most monkeys, and some crows. Now can you imagine, grandfather and this boy were keeping snakes, monkeys, and crows as their pets. So that is why maybe grandmother was not liking these pets, but these owls, they have naturally come to their household. So that is why she also started feeling a strong bond. She also started making that strong bond with them. But she took quite a fancy of the owls. What is fancy? Liking, as we can see in the new word list in the grocery. So um, and frequently fed them spaghetti. What she used to feed them? Spaghetti. They seemed quite food for fond of spaghetti. In fact, the owls became so attached to grandmother that they began to show affection towards anyone in petticoat, including Aunt Mabel, who was terrified of them. She would run shrieking from the room every time one of the birds silted up to her in friendly manner, right? So now these owlets started recognizing grandmother as with the petticoats. So now anybody who would wear petticoat or a skirt, in that way, so they would consider that lady as a grandmother. They were so very attached to this lady. Okay, what is a spaghetti? Word watch. Spaghetti is another word for noodles. It comes from the Italian word spago, which means strings. Noodles also has strings, separate strings, which we boil and we eat. Okay, so in this manner, this grandmother also started feeling very good about these owlets, or she also had started making bond with these owlets, and that is why this family has become a very happy family now. Grandfather, the boy, grandmother, and two owlets. So they all have started living nicely together. Okay. Forgetful of the fact that the grandfather and I had reared them, the owls would sometimes swell their feathers and snap at anyone in trousers. And this bond of owlets with grandmother, it grew so strong that even they forgot that, you know, initially grandfather and this boy only had taken care of them, you know, and they had forgotten, and they had made such a strong bond with the grandmother that if these if grandfather and boy, naturally they will wear trousers, so if they see them in the trousers, they would sniff at them, they would be very angry, you know, they would swell their feathers. How owls and other birds, they show that they're angry, they swell their feathers, and that is why when they become double in the size, people understand that okay, fine, now they're angry, we should stay away, we should maintain some distance. Okay. To avoid displeasing them, now naturally grandfather and the writer had built that fondness towards the owlets. That is why they did not want them to be displeasing, they didn't want to make them angry. So to avoid that displeasing behavior, or to avoid that anger, what they have done, to avoid displeasing them, grandfather wore a petticoat at feeding time. Look at this now. These owlets were so very fond of grandmother that the grandfather also had to wear a petticoat so that he could feed them. I compromised by wearing an apron. And the boy, of course, did not want to wear a petticoat, so he used to cover himself with the apron so that it could look like a petticoat. In response to grandmother's voice, the owlets would make the sounds as gentle and soothing as the purring of a cat. But when wild owls were around, ours would rend the night with the blood curdling shrieks. Their nightly occupation of catching beetles, with which the kitchen quarters were full of at times, with their sharp eyes and powerful beaks, they were excellent pest destroyers. Okay, and these owlets were used to make so very, see, this is a different kinds of sounds which the writer wants to show it to us, that how these voices could be different when these creatures are in a different mood, when they're in attacking mood, when they are in a fierce mood, you know, their voice, their sounds raises. But when they talk, when they used to talk, or when they used to be with the grandmother, when they used to see grandmother around, then they used to make a very gentle soothing sound. You know, in this way they express their emotion. They cannot express much through their face, but they can express everything through the way they make their sounds, the way they modulate their sounds, and the way they showcase their body language. Okay, so body language and sound are the uh, keys to understand whether the animal or a bird is angry or in a happy mood. And for free, this household got a free kind of a pest check, because these owlets used to hunt at night, because of course by nature they are the night birds. So they used to hunt at nights and kill all the beetles and other insects they used to be in the kitchen or anywhere in the house. The owls loved to sit and splash in a shallow dish, especially if cold water was poured over them from a jug at the same time. Now, of course, now these outlets, they used to have a bath, you know, and in a manner they bathe themselves, like, you know, they used to sit and they used to splash water here and there, you know, and then what used to happen, and then simultaneously when they used to play with water, somebody had to pour cold water over their bodies, on their bodies. They would get thoroughly wet, jump out of the porch, shake themselves, and then return for a second splash and sometimes a third. And this used to be a play for them. Bathing was sort of a used to be play for them. once and twice and thrice. They used to shake their bodies, they used to get thoroughly wet, and then they used to shake their bodies and again return back and splash. And so it was all fun for them. During the day, they dozed in a large cages under the tree in the garden. They needed cages for protection against attacks from the wild birds. Now, of course, in the daytime, um these people used to keep them into the large cages outside the home in the garden, so that at least they can have the feeling um, of freedom, or they could be with nature as well. At night, they had the freedom of the house, and at night these creatures used to come inside the house, and in the daytime they used to go outside, and they had all freedom to go anywhere in the house. At night, they had the freedom of the house where they exercise their wings as much as they like. That means they used to fly in the house, they used to hunt in the house, they can do whatever they want to do in the house. They had all freedom at night, but under the uh, inside the house, not outside, because naturally outside, if they would go, they might be killed. Superstitious folk who feared the cry of the owl may be interested to know that mice accepted there were no unexpected deaths in the house during the owl's residence. Looking back, now naturally people have some superstitions about owls and dogs crying. Basically, we don't like those screaming and shrieking sounds which dogs and owls produce, because we take it for granted. We think that this could be a misfortune, or um, could bring, it is not good luck sign for many. But for accepted mice, because naturally it is their favorite food, so except mice, there were no unusual deaths in the house or around during their residence in the household. Looking back on those owlish days, I carry in my mind a picture of grandmother with a contented look in her rocking chair. Now again, now suddenly a writer has brought us to the present time, because now he was narrating the story which had happened, or the experience which he had in his uh, past years. But now suddenly what he's talking about, that looking back means it's a phrase used when we talk about the past, about the memories, about the past experiences which we already have. Looking back on those owlish days, like boyish and girlish. Owlish is also used as an adjective here. So owlish days, I mean the days full of owls around in the residence and house and taking care of owls. I carry in my mind what is that profound picture, or a very vivid picture which he carries in his mind, is of grandmother with a contented look in her rocking chair. The grandmother used to sit, and her face used to be very contented, satisfied, happy, and she used to rock in the chair. Once, on entering her room while she was having an afternoon nap, I saw that one of the owls had crawled up her pillow till its head was snuggled under her ear. Both grandmother and the little owls were snoring. And this is the last and the profound picture which he remembers till date, that once in the afternoon when this boy entered her room, grandmother's room, to his surprise, what did he see? He see that owl and the grandmother both were snoring, and the owl was actually on the grandmother's shoulder, and both were sleeping and both were snoring so very pleasantly. I mean, can you imagine how much this grandmother and owlets had that bond together, that they even used to sleep, you know though these owlets they used to keep outside in the cage in the garden, but maybe on that day they had been brought back inside. And as owls generally sleep in the daytime, and at night they are active, so they sleep in a in that daytime. So that is why both were sleeping so very nicely, and this was something profound memory this the narrator has. Okay, children, so here we come to the end of this lesson. Let's have a quick look about the author. Ruskin Bond, 1934 dash, that means he is alive, is a British Indian author best known for his short stories set in the Himalayan towns. His first novel, The Room on the Roof, written when he was 17, won the John Llewellyn Ray Memorial Prize. He received the Sahitya Akademi Award for his collection of short stories. Our trees still grow in Dehradun. In Dehra. Dehra here means Dehradun. His native place is Dehradun. So in short, in whichever story, if you find Dehra word, which means Dehradun, right? I hope you might have enjoyed this. There are a few new words here: red, rend, blood curdling, contented, right? Just have a quick look. Red means to brought up. Rend means to tear apart. Blood curdling means terrifying. Contented means satisfied with what one has. Contented, the synonym is satisfied, right? So children, I would be sending across a worksheet based on this chapter, so please solve, okay, and enjoy reading. Thank you very much.